10-6 welcomes Sharifa Hardie. She is a business consultant, talk show host, author, and influencer, and diversity and inclusion expert. Sharifa uses her wide range of knowledge and experience to help individuals, companies, and communities be the best they can and find the success they deserve. Sharifa plans to continue her journey to become a representative of California's District 33 in the 2024 primary election. Specifically through her candidacy, Sharifa will address her plans to create jobs, eradicate homelessness, and achieve diversity, equity, and inclusion in District 33 and across the United States. Welcome, Sharifa Hardie.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. Is there anything else that you want to add to your bio? It's very interesting, as I stated. Is there anything else that you'd like to share?
Just me, I'm a parent, I'm a daughter, I'm a friend, I'm an ordained minister. There's so much to me, but at the bottom line is I just love people and love to help people.
And in this area of entering the political arena, it definitely requires those people skills, and clearly your background is indicative of that. From your bio and the promos also online that I find so interesting, it is not clear to me though what your political affiliations are or political.
No party preference.
Could you expand on that when you say no party preference?
That I don't have a party preference, which means I'm neither a Democrat or a Republican. I don't have a party. I'm here to help the people, all people.
Okay. And so in that case, then give me an insight then, or, on how you will run your political campaign. For example, if someone is, say you're doing a town hall and someone is asking you, where do you stand on certain issues? How, what is your, philosophy on when you say for the people? You're not a political affiliation. What does that mean? What would that mean? And what does that look like when you're actually in your constituents trying to get people to vote for you?
Well, it means exactly what we saw in 2020, that we had a great divide in the nation, the Republicans against the Democrats against the Republicans. And I have never been a person that tries to pick sides, or I'm not a group think type of person. Everything that I focus on is for all people, whether they're Republicans, Democrats, or whatever their party is. So that's why I don't have a preference as far as party. I'm here to focus on the issues, and those issues that I'm passionate about are homelessness, unemployment, creating jobs for everyone, diversity, equity, inclusion, creating a city, a place, District 33, which is acceptable for everyone. That's my focus, not what the party is.
Very interested, and I'm glad you actually cleared that up. So for those individuals who are looking for that type of membership, then, as the way that you explained it, then they'll be able to find their values within that type of philosophy, non-partisan, not necessarily taking any political sides, just focusing on the social issues that needs to be addressed. That is actually an interesting and I would say a very progressive way of working politically. So District 33, I believe from my memory, but let me ask you, who are your opponents in District 33?
Well, I don't look at opponents in any form or fashion in my life. I just run and operate, and being that the election is 2024, it's going to be some time before we start taking a look at the other candidates. I don't think many people have even announced that they're going to run in the 2024 election.
So isn't, I believe, who is it current representative then? Isn't it Dianne Weinstein? Am I correct saying that?
No, the current person who just won, let me see what her name is. I always forget her name. Lena Gonzalez is her name. And she
Okay.
won in November of 2020. So she will remain in the seat, God forbid any unnecessary changes or anything unseen until 2024.
Okay. Let me see if I understand. So you're running to be, and I apologize if this is not clear, if I'm not, my question is not coming off clear. You're running to be part of the local body or the larger national Senate body? Which is it?
Well, there is the state Senate and then there is the federal Senate,
Okay.
right? So since this is California District 33, it will be the state Senate.
Okay, got it. Thank you for that clarification. So the political constituents, in terms of the racial ethnic makeup, can you describe the area of people that you will serve within District 33?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're a melting pot. I'm not sure where you are, but that's one of the things that we are known for and that we're proud of in California is us being a melting pot. That's what Long Beach is known for, being a melting pot, so that we have people, and that's my focus, especially with diversity, equity, inclusion, is making sure that it's a place for everyone, that it's not just focused on one demographic or one type of people. So we have all demographics within District 33, whether it's the African American, the Hispanic, the Asian, anyone. There's great makeup within District 33.
Very good. And so, how did you introduce yourself? Have you literally gone into those communities and start introducing yourself to them? Aside from the online presence that you have in promoting your plan to run, what other avenues have you used to reach out to these local individuals to say, this is what I'm trying to do. I want your support.
Well, that of course is the plan. But what I've been doing is being in politics for a few years now, since I ran for Long Beach City Council. So I've been putting my face out there, putting my name out there, speaking to the constituents. And so again, since this is the 2024 election, we are just ramping up to begin the next campaign push for the next 4 years.
Okay. So that's in the plan to do like town halls, to do door to doors, to do doing these types of snowballing, networking type of campaign. Is that the plan?
The plan is to campaign, correct, to get my name, my face out there and to meet the constituents and find out what's important to them, find out what their issues are. I think that's the most important thing, is what the people's concern is.
So you mentioned homelessness, which is a great factor, and it's always a political, factor, social factor among not just, of course, your district, but across the U.S. And immigration, based on the racial and ethnic component that you mentioned within your district. I am curious, and I'm sure people who want to support you would be curious as well as to your social and political beliefs or platform or philosophy as it relates to families, communities, immigration, laws or policies surrounding immigration, social welfare, and so on. What are your beliefs or values or just their political platform on those issues?
Okay, so my focus is, like I mentioned earlier, with unemployment and with homelessness, is because I've been in those shoes. I've been in those situations. I've been laid off over 8 times. I've lost everything that I have. And even when I have been employed, I haven't been able to have a living wage. And I think that's what the majority of Americans care about, being able to have a job, have a career with a living wage, instead of the majority of people who are working 2 or 3 jobs. They may have 2 actual full-time jobs, a full-time job, a part-time job, and then they also may be driving for a company like Uber or Lyft. This is America, one of the greatest lands ever. There's no reason in the world for people to have to work so many different jobs. They should be able to have a job, have a living wage, be able to feed their families, have a home, pay their rent, or pay their mortgage. And those are the things that are important to me. Having lost everything that I own, I know what it's like to have nothing. But I believe that the majority of Americans right now across the board in the nation, for the most part, are about one paycheck, one accident, one illness, one tragedy that they didn't expect from being homeless. And so that to me is the shame, not just the homelessness, because in order to eradicate homelessness, the first thing you have to do is you have to give people hope. The majority of the people that are out there don't have the hope. They don't have the belief that they can have something different. And that's because in their minds, in the way it is right now, even if they were to go out and get a job and that job paid $13 an hour or $14 an hour, whatever it is, where can you buy a home with that? Where can you pay rent with that? And you can't. So we have to be able to correct where we are within society to make it livable for most people. Most people don't have a savings. They have absolutely nothing in the savings. Maybe they have $15, $20, but they don't have that emergency fund to fall back on in case something happens. And again, being America, to me, that's a shame and disgrace. We have to be able to make it where people can enjoy their lives, enjoy, and have a safety net in case something does happen. Our cost of medicine, our cost of healthcare, to me, all these things are outrageous, and they add to the homelessness. They add to being out of a job when most people can't afford to live, and they can't afford to die.
Very passionate, response. And these would be, I guess many people would agree with, your statements on those. But what does that look like in action in terms of, making this happen? For example, starting from your local level, you said $14, $15 an hour is not effective in terms of living wages. People working 2 to 3 jobs just trying to make ends meet. And so I'm in your constituents and I'm saying to you, well, Sharifa, that sounds really wonderful. Thank you for thinking of us. But what is it exactly does that look like in action in order to make it happen?
Right. So that's the plan. That's the plan that we are coming up with. But the majority of that is when you take a look at people and their skill sets. There are certain skill sets that allow for certain jobs, but many people don't have the opportunity to learn other skill sets that will give them careers that will allow for a living wage. So you have to be able to take the people where they are and then take them to where they need to be in order to change their lives. But if you just take people off the streets and put them in homeless shelters, you're not giving them the skill set that they need to survive. So my focus is always been to teach a man to fish, to give the man the skill set that they need and the tools they need to survive. So that's my focus.
Excellent point. So now I can see where that would happen. So, I'm looking to increase my wages, and you're going to create the opportunity for me to learn the skills in order to do that. And I think those, as you said, those are hard skills, those are hard approaches and strategies that will manifest itself and improve families. I do support those ideas. Excellent. So just to continue with your perceptions and beliefs and values that I'm sure kind of segue into your political platform. What is your perception of life in terms of, especially with the current atmosphere that we're living in now? A lot of times I ask these questions, people do struggle, in trying to make sense of life and their own life, and even to give others advice. What is your perception of just, life itself?
For me, I think life is to be lived. Life is what you make it. I mean, there are some people who experience the same thing and say life is a living hell. Life's a bitch. Then you have other people with the same experiences that look at it and go, oh my God, my life is amazing. It's wonderful. Everything is how you look at it. Everything is perception. I enjoy life. I love life. I mean, especially over the last year or so in 2020 with a global pandemic, we've had so much loss. I've lost family members. I know, I can tell you just about everyone I know has lost someone. And so when you fast forward to 2021, you go, okay, you know what? We have lost this person. We lost this relative. We lost these friends. We've lost that job. We've lost the ability to commute. We've lost so much, but we look around and we go, okay, but what is still here? What do we still have? I still have so many people around me that I love, so many people around me who support me, who love me, who are here on this journey with me. So when I look at life, the only thing I can do is just be grateful.
Wow, excellent point. So life is for living, knowing that you have love and support and community around you. So despite the atrocities, despite the things that are going on around us, we should come back to that center and try to just embrace the ones that we love. So it sounds like a sense of community is important to life. Would you agree with that statement?
I mean, I think a sense of community is a part of life. There are times when you want to be a part of the community. There are times when you don't want to be a part of the community. I think everything is balanced. But for me, when I look at life, the main thing that stands out more than community is just simply gratitude, being grateful for whatever it is that you have. So if you are a part of that community right now, that's wonderful. Sometimes if you went apart and you needed some space for yourself to heal, alone, that's wonderful as well. I think too often we place judgment on what is right and what is wrong and what is mandatory and what is needed. And I try not to do that. I just try to be and accept whatever is at that moment and be grateful for that.
Interesting point. So with that said, the way that, as you said, as life unfolds, you make it, you try to make it based on what it is. Um, how would you describe then finding those meanings? Because a lot of things can be happening in a person's life, and it can be, I know you mentioned there, we're focusing too much on right and wrong, but unfortunately we live in a society that kind of dictates right and wrong, and we tend to and the hope is that we follow these kind of structured ways. How do we find meaning with what life throws at us if we're taking it as it is? How do we find that meaning and purpose? What do we do?
Meaning, well, meaning and purpose are different things to different people. When you talk about society, a society that dictates right or wrong, I think society dictates legal and illegal. And so those are the guidelines that society gives us. Anything else is up to us to discern what is right for us, what is wrong for us, what we feel. And so if someone can look at it and go, what is the meaning of life? Then you have another person who can look at it and go, there's no meaning to life. That is just simply life. It just simply is what it is. Sometimes we look for meaning where there is none. Sometimes we miss the meaning of what we should get out of a situation. And so what I try to do again is not to have absolutes. When we have too many absolutes, then we lose a part of what we need to see, a part of what we need to learn. I just try to experience it. Just like, for instance, this opportunity for me to sit down with you. I didn't go into it with any preconceived idea of what it was going to be, what it was going to lead to, what is going to happen. I had an opportunity to sit down and have a conversation without looking too much into where it's going to go. And that's to me simply how I lead life. I don't look at it and go, okay, well, it has to have some meaning. It has to go somewhere. No, it's just an opportunity for me to sit down with a wonderful person, wonderful show, and communicate.
Wow, I appreciate that comment, and I can see how your success in all those diverse area that you mentioned can be modeled and can be looked to in terms of guidance, because there's some solid point that you're offering here, Sharifa, and I thank you for that. So with that said, I want to ask a question then, because you mentioned, well, society tends to have these defining lines, and we should have this, basically, this flexibility in our thinking and approach life with less assumptions and less restrictions and so on. So I could ask, in general, who do we look to? Who should we look to in terms for guidance, based on our thoughts and actions? Or I can ask you as well, who do you look to towards for guidance in your thoughts? And I have suggestions. Is it has to do with religion in terms of, the belief in God, the Bible, government law, so family culture. I think you reject society's, straight and narrow. So what are the suggestions you have in terms of how we should guide our thoughts and actions?
I mean, from the things you mentioned, when you talk about religion and you talk about scripture and you talk about society, and you talk about the government, I think that's all a part of it, right? I've experienced all of it. I was raised Muslim, went to non-denominational, been to different churches. I'm an ordained minister. So there's aspects of that. But my belief and why so many people can relate to me and I'm able to help and work with so many people is that I simply believe is that if you took any humans and you put them on a deserted island, those humans had no knowledge of the Bible or the Quran or any scriptures, or they didn't read the law, they didn't know what the law was. There's something in them. There's the human spirit inside of them that gives them the will to survive. That spirit inside them knows what is right. We instantly know what's right and wrong. We feel it in our spirit. We know you shouldn't hit people. We know you shouldn't hurt people. It's not just because scripture says that. It's because that's what we know in our spirit. So if we were on a deserted island, something is going to come to us and say, you know what, we need shelter. Well, how can I create shelter? Then we'll go over, we'll get something to cut a tree down and we'll start building. And that to me is the most powerful thing, is that voice inside of us. And some call it the voice of God, some call it intuition, people call it by many names. It's been known by many names, but there's something innately inside of us that knows the difference between right and wrong. And that's what I use to guide me. I tap into my inner Sharifa, my inner me, my inner voice daily, constantly throughout the day and say, Sharifa, is this what's right for you? Is this what you need to do? Or maybe just simply ask the question, what do you need to do in order to move forward? And then I sit and I wait and I listen for the messages to come back to me.
Very good. And so, would you agree then that you're talking about inner self and also self-reflection as part of guiding ourselves and following our instincts and so on. However, there, some will say that the fundamentals of culture, of society, plays a larger role because that's, we're neutral or more neutral, I guess, and then left with the or stamped with imprints of family, culture, and society. What do you say about that?
I mean, that's absolutely true. I mean, a baby is innocent. A baby doesn't have any plans. When it comes into the world, it goes into a family. And it's one of my favorite discussions because people will say, oh, that's normal, or that's abnormal. And what's normal for someone may be completely abnormal for someone else. In some cultures, in some families, in society, they walk into the kitchen and there are shotguns all over the kitchen table. There's no fear, there's no worries. That's just what's normal for them. There are other people who will walk into that same room and that same kitchen table and see guns on the table and completely freak out. I mean, it's the family that we grow into, but it doesn't necessarily make it right or wrong. But also, one of the things that we have to accept is that we evolve over time. And it's a beautiful time to be alive because we are seeing the evolution of so many different generations. Our generations right now are working so much harder towards inclusion than any other generation I've seen. We want to be able to have the human race and have a focus on human race and stop being as divided as we have in the past. But in order for us to make that change and to evolve, we have to eradicate, we have to get rid of the ways we used to do things. In the past, people were segregated. If your skin was this color, then you can't do this, or you only can do that. Your skin was one color, then you had more options. But we're looking at it and we're going, you know what? Has that served us as a people? Has that served us as a society? So we grow, we evolve based on what we've done in the past.
Very fluently said. And so with that, encouragement for diversity, with that encouragement, to embrace others and create this inclusive society. How do you foresee creating these opportunities in your constituents for people to find a sense of meaning? Because we're so fluent about what we know as individuals, because maybe we have sought out those values and ideas and information to create knowledge from that. But of course, not so for everyone. And that's why you in your position will be creating these opportunities for individuals to find themselves, to, because working 3, 4 jobs, for example, is hard for sometimes for that self-reflection to make even sense, except for just, trying to make ends meet. So what do we do to inspire others, or what would you do to inspire others to find that sense of meaning, to be more inclusive, to seek out more diversity? You said you were living in a new world where this generation is considered to be embracing diversity more than any other generation. So where should we find our inspiration for that meaning in order to do this?
I think people find meaning in themselves. They find meaning wherever they look for meaning. My focus is not to help people to find meaning or to inspire people. What I have done for 20 years is to help entrepreneurs and small business owners to understand and truly believe that they do not have to be employees. They do not have to wait for somebody to create a job or to hire them. They can go out and do for themselves. They can create their own companies that can create jobs and hire other people. So that's my focus. That's why I host my talk shows, the Roundtable Talk Show, which airs weekdays at 8 a.m. live on Facebook. We bring together entrepreneurs, CEOs, business owners together in a roundtable organic discussion to talk about how we can make this world a better place. So that is my specific focus, my gift. What I came to this earth to do is always been about entrepreneurship, because whatever career you want, you can go out there and start it. You may not be able to stop or leave your day job today, but you can create a company, a business that will help others. And so instead of just inspiring people to want meaning in life, I help people and I assist people to go and change and better their lives.
So people find inspirations within themselves. And I'm getting this inner, as you said, that inner Sharifa, as you mentioned, that people at times should look within themselves, because all the different aspects of, or strategies and techniques may be available to them, but because they don't understand self, they're not reflecting on within, having that awareness or self-awareness, it may fall by. So that self-inspiration is what you're, is that the mantra? Would you agree?
I don't think it's necessarily a mantra or the self. I think what happens is because we may see life from a limited viewpoint, there
Mhm.
may be something that we really want to do. That's something that we want to achieve, but we don't have anyone in our corner to say, yes, you can do it. And we don't have anyone in our corner to say, this is how you do it. And so
Mhm.
my focus is once the person decides for themselves what they want to do, or have an idea maybe that they're not doing what they want to do, then I just want to help people to take those next steps to be able to create a life that they won't want to escape from. I love my life. I enjoy my life. I have the financial flexibility and the financial freedom to absolutely do whatever I want to do. And that's really what people want, is the freedom to do and go where they want to go, when they want to go. And so that's what I help people get to decide a life that they want to live.
Interesting. And this takes me to a question that I, I, I tend to ask this question because I want to understand people's perception of, living the life they want to live. Then you just said it. How do we take control of our lives based on the type of society that we're living in, the U.S. society, for example, where it's materialistic, it's superficial in its own way, um, and um, and do you agree then with this idea that we live in a materialistic society, and how do we become sober from it, or not?
Well, When you say a materialistic society, that's a belief system. You would have to believe that the society is materialistic. I believe that there are people within the society that are materialistic. There are people
Mhm.
within the society that are not. So we create our worlds, we create our experiences. I don't live in a materialistic society. I live in a
Mhm.
society where all my needs are met, which is a different way of looking at things. So for me, I don't focus too much on society. Society has never been my concern. Even in running for politics, I don't look at it and go, this is the way society is. I look at it and go, what is the world that I want to create? And then I focus on creating that world. Even in running for politics, I don't focus on my energy on, okay, I have to help all of these people. No, I focus on who I can help. Maybe that's just one person. Out of this whole 4-year campaign to
Mhm.
2024, maybe I only help one person, but that's one person that would not have been helped had I not run. And so that is my focus. I never look at the competition. I never look at what other people are doing or what society is doing. I create what I want. One of my favorite little things to tell people is, if they've ever heard the word abracadabra. Most people have heard the word abracadabra, but they don't understand that it's a Yiddish word meaning I create what I speak. So I speak positivity into everything that I do. And I do not focus on the negative. I never give the negative, the dark, or whatever anyone wants to call it, any type of power. My words I speak are positive, and they create the world that I want to see.
Very interesting take on that, and I did not know that. Adacadabra. I didn't know it translated to that. Thanks for sharing that. But let's look at this in this way, because one of the questions I think I asked you, your perception and beliefs about, for example, welfare or social welfare, and there's a lot of nuances around people who may be recipients of social welfare. In a sense, I believe we all are in some ways at some point, but the stereotypes around it makes it so difficult for people to even understand it. But say, for example, when I mention societal's materialistic ways, is how, and I'm going to use the word victim, because what I'm getting from how you're framing things is that you believe in this powerful self, this agent, this agency that should take control of their lives regardless of what is happening around them. So the individual is operating within this society and able to maneuver themselves, navigate all the other things around them, and still, find that inspiration in self. So let's bring all of this together. Someone who is a recipient of welfare believe that they should have all the fine things in life, regardless of the fact that they can't afford it. And so, because they are bombarded with things in the media in terms of brand names and how one should live, they um, try to live outside of their means, thus succumbing to the materialistic aspect of society. What do you say about that then, from that perspective?
I would say you just put a whole bunch of assumptions into one sentence. That was like a whole bunch of assumptions about a lot of different areas and a lot of different conversations. I mean, because
Mhm,
basically what I heard, if I heard you correctly, is that
mhm,
the belief is that because a person is on welfare, they
mhm,
want to live beyond their means because that's what society says. I think again that's a generalization, because there are different people who are on welfare for different reasons,
mhm,
and the things that they want and the things that they want to purchase can be as varied. I mean, there are people who are receiving government assistance who would never buy anything above their means or outside of their means, and they're
mhm,
trying to get out of the system. There are people who say, you know what, I want to be a part of the system and I don't want to do anything else. But then they also may not be materialistic and attempting to buy things that they can't afford. And then you have other people who say, you know what, I want to be on the system forever because I have to get those new pair of Jordans that I can't afford. But the people that I've seen on the system, there are a lot of, I want to really emphasize that there are a lot of different reasons, a lot
mhm,
of different reasons. And many of those reasons, a myriad of different reasons, have nothing to do with being materialistic. I think that the people who are gainfully employed are the people who tend to be more materialistic than people who are receiving government assistance, because they feel like they have to have this. So if I have to work 18 different jobs to be able to afford those new pair of Jordans, I have to have the Jordans, because if I don't have the Jordans, everybody is going to say that I'm not keeping up with the Joneses, or I'm not doing that. So what I try to do is look at every person, every individual. And that's why I keep going back to self as opposed to society. Because when
Mhm.
you look at society as a whole, what you tend to do is generalize. You look and say, okay, well, everybody has this problem and this is how we fix it. But everyone doesn't have the same problem. Everyone doesn't have the same experience. Just like you and I, we're sitting here experiencing this conversation in
Mhm.
two different ways. Your way is not right or wrong. My way is not right or wrong, but we're experiencing it from our own personal perception. And so that's what I try to do, is work with individuals to figure out where they are and then correct some of the areas or blockages that they have in order for that person to be a better asset to
Mhm.
society.
Very interesting. So yes, the question is a generalization, and we're actually exploring it based on people's perception of what materialistic, being sober from a materialistic society is in relation to someone who cannot afford it. So excellent, excellent response. I do appreciate that. So you're from your bio, you've done so much, and then you had all the other areas that you've also are accomplished in. And I am so taken back about in terms of the vast amount of knowledge um, based on those background. If you're, when you're talking to, individuals, groups, and so on, and or even a diverse group of people, what would you say are the power dynamics that are working against them? And again, yes, it is a negative, because these questions are coming from a societal point of view. Um, in order for, the power dynamics that are working against them, against their goal to achieve a better life or a meaningful life, what would you say to them? Because I'm sure you come across, being a consultant, meaning you're answering a lot of questions.
Yes. So in general, my response to that question is, no matter who it is, that your life is up to you. That's what most people don't take into account. Our life is about choices. That's what my kids will tell you. If you learn anything else from me, understand that life is about choices and consequences. That's it. You can look at two people who were born in the same place, whether that's in America, in Los Angeles, in New York City, in a third world country. It doesn't matter. You'll see two people who have the same exact situation. Maybe they're brothers and sisters, maybe they're neighbors, but they come from the same area, the same family dynamic, the same circumstances. But one person will get out of that situation and become successful, and the other person will not. So it's all up to that person. There's always a way. Life is going to come at you. There's never going to be a point in time where life doesn't come at you and say, okay, well, now we're going to throw this situation at you. Now you're homeless. Now you're divorced. Now you're unemployed. Life is always going to happen. It just comes down to how you handle the situation, how you respond to that situation. And studies have shown, when they study the human spirit, one of the things that happens is that person has to have the will, just simply the will to overcome whatever those challenges are. Too often what happens is people just simply give up. And people have said to me, they said, Sharifa, you are just so strong. How did you become so strong? How did you get through it? How do you make it through? And I always ask the question, what were my choices? What were my alternatives? Like, I had to feed my kids. I had to eat. These are things that I had to do. It wasn't like I was just sitting around going, oh, well, it'd be nice to have these things. So I think that once we have the will to overcome, life happens and a way presents itself if we keep going.
The will to overcome. That's your point. And
Yes.
so we all have choices. That's what you're saying. And so earlier you mentioned that you want to help people, and if you help only one person within those 4 years, that is okay. Did I summarize that
Yes.
correctly? Why is that
Correct.
okay? Why is that okay? I mean, I know it's an example, but say at say a micro level, you simply help a family. shouldn't the expectations be more for someone who is occupying the position of you know, being a political representative for a community? Um, should there be more or greater expectations in helping individuals?
I would say no, because the point that I was making is through the campaign. When you're campaigning, there's no obligation to help anyone. The obligation is when you get this seat, when you're sitting in the Senate seat for District 33, now you're available to help the people. So in my life, all I've ever focused on any day is helping that person that's in front of me right now. And there are people that I will help, and there were people who will remain the same. But if I've done some good in my life and I've made a difference in the lives of anyone, then to me, I've done what I came here to do.
So anything that has to do with policy making, you know, working models to change communities to improve communities, or you know, to create a safer, better, improved environment for individuals in those communities should not just help one person. It should be helping the entire community. So someone probably listening to you with your focus on agent, with focus on the individual self and the individual helping themselves, and for them to find their inner you know, person and you know, take and make those choices, they will say, well, if that's the case, then why do we need politicians then? Why do we need these leaders if we have to lead our own selves?
Well, two questions that you asked at once. Again, when I was referring to helping people, all of the things that you mentioned will happen after being elected in the Senate seat, not during the campaign, which is what we were discussing.
Okay.
And now what most people forget, and what I'm so passionate about, again, is reminding people that we the people, it's we the people. So it's not, you know, people ask me why I decided to run for politics. And I said, it's not, for me, it's not politics, it's people, it's helping people. So I don't look at it and go, there's a need for politicians per se, but what we need is for someone, anyone, to step up and say, you know what, I want to do my part, which is again the self, to make this world a better place. So for me, that's what politicians are. Politicians are leaders that step up and say, you know what, if no one else is going to do the job and the people feel that I am the best person for this job, then that's what I'm going to do. So that's how I look at the difference. You know, you have to have some type of organized way of improving things. And that's why the people vote a politician in.
Excellent, excellent. You said the will to overcome. So let's look at human compassion. Um, should there be limits for human compassion? People who fall victim to, you know, these assumptions then that we have about the materialistic society that we live in. People who fall victim to other various atrocities in our society. What should some of those, how should we help people being compassionate towards them? What does human compassion look like? And do you even think that there should be a greater compassion towards anyone or to individual? And what's the limit there? What are your value range and functions? So there's a two-part question that is in terms of human compassion. Should there be limits to it? And what are your values and a range of compassion towards anyone, if you do believe that?
I believe that compassion is the highest form of love. I believe that compassion is what we are lacking as a people right now. I do not believe that there's a limit to compassion. I believe compassion is endless. It's what we need more of. It's the ability to take a look at someone in their situation and simply say, there for the grace of God go I. I could be in that situation. So to be able to look at someone, to stand in their shoes and really see what they're going through, that to me is compassion. And that's what we need more of. Because to me, me, you can't hate and be compassionate. If you're have hate for someone, if you have hate in your heart, then you're not seeing them as an individual. You're not seeing them as a human being. You're not seeing them as your brother or your sister. And that's what I live by personally. I look at everyone and I go, I want for my sister what I want for myself. I want success for myself, but you know what? I want success for you too. I want you to have all the things that you want in your life. And I can look at any situation that you may be going through and I go, you know
Mhm.
what? That situation is affecting her, send her love and want the best for you. And too often we don't try to understand anyone else's situation. We just focus on ourselves.
Thank you for that. That is really, I appreciate the point. It should be our highest value range. What are you most sensitive about, Sharifa? And this is, like a personal question, or it could be even a question of what comprised you, whether professionally, politically, and socially. What are you most, which area, what aspect of human life or society that you're most sensitive towards?
If I'm understanding the question correctly, I would say the thing that I'm sensitive about, the thing that really affects me more than anything else is just hunger. I just cannot stand to see a child go hungry. I cannot stand to see a child not have enough to eat, because again, to me, it's a reflection of society. We keep talking about society, but when you are living in a world that's the greatest ever, like I love America, I love the freedom, the ability that we have, and then you have children who are hungry. But then you go 2 blocks away and you have multi-million-dollar homes and you have people with 20 cars and living this lavish life. It's like, but yet you haven't taken care of the least of them. And that's my focus, is that you have to make sure that you take care of the least of them before you do anything. So for me, hungry children is something that I'm sensitive about and something that I'm just truly passionate about.
And so well articulated, yes, and you interpret the question correctly. These are some of the factors in society that our compassion tends to be at its fullest. And when you mention children and hunger in the same sentence, that's exactly it. And all of this also tied into homelessness, the one of the platform that you are looking into. That we need to make sure that individuals, families in our society do not have to experience these terrible, terrible things. How would you, with that said, in terms of your sensitivity towards, children and hunger, then, and it's not just children, it's children in general, but there are actually groups of children and families who suffered the most. And these questions, will help me understand and help your constituents that you're running in understand. How would you address racism, in your community? Um, you know, Mental health issues. You already talk about homelessness. What would be your mindful response then to those areas that are so most sensitive, that to you and to others who may want to do something?
Well, when you address racism, you're addressing a symptom of a problem. You're addressing a symptom of an issue. Most people don't even realize slavery was not initially about race. It was about money. It was about finances. So they tried making white people or Caucasian people, whatever you want to call them, into slaves. And those people just simply ran away. And so when they ran away, people couldn't find them, so they couldn't turn them into slaves. So they came up with this idea in their mind that they thought was brilliant, that we'll find a race of people that we'll know by the color of their skin that they are slaves. And that's what they did. And that's why they went all the way to Africa to get people of a darker melanin to do the work, because they automatically on site were seen as slaves. So you bring it up to 2021. Where are we now? It's still the same thing. Most things being equal, race will not come into play. That is my belief and what I've seen. So if you have a society of people who are happy, they're not filled with hate. They're not going out and saying, well, my neighbor, he got this job because of affirmative action, so I hate them, but that was my job and now I can't feed my family because the Black man got the job. So I always say we have to look past the symptoms. What is the cause? Just like in 2020, when we saw so much hate being stirred up, what else was happening at the same time? You had high levels of unemployment. So it's not that people just woke up and said, oh, I just hate the Black man. It's the society that they're living up. Their mindset says, I don't have enough. And if I don't have enough, there's somebody to blame. There's somebody's fault. And we saw so much more racism in 2020 that just came to a head and it come out, not just 2020, but over the last few years under the current president, is because people were hungry, people were suffering, people had so many issues. Mental illness was at an all-time high because people were stressed out. Doctors, psychiatrists will tell you the same thing. You could be schizophrenic, you could be bipolar, you could have a chemical imbalance, but as long as there are no stressors in your life, you can live a perfectly normal, happy life. But then when life hits you, you have that divorce, you have that layoff, you have, whatever stresses you out, all of a sudden your mental illness takes over. Mental illness has been high over the past year because people are stressed out over COVID. They lost their job, they lost their sense of security. I've spoken to people who have worked at their jobs for over 20 years. I knew a guy who had a company that had to close his doors, and he had worked with his employees some of his employees had been there with him from the beginning for 30 years. He knew these people longer than he knew his children. To some people, being relocated can stress them out. So we don't just have to look at the numbers for mental illness. We have to look at society. We have to look at the world. We have to look at us as a people as a whole and say, what is going on that all of a sudden things just spike, or they call it an uptick in these different incidents. So I, again, like to look past the symptoms and focus on how can we make society as a whole diverse, equal, and inclusive.
Sharifa, you just wrote the first chapter on institutional racism. Excellent. I really do like that. I like the concept. Racism is a symptom, and you need to look deeper into how it affects people and all those correlated factors that you mentioned, mental health. If you have certain things in place, you can manage other areas of your life better. It doesn't mean because you're struggling with a mental illness, you automatically becomes homeless. It doesn't mean that because you're homeless, then something is wrong with you mentally. So we must be mindful of these things, and those are mindful responses. And we're down to our last or final few minutes, and I just want to quickly ask you, clearly, I can, from just your response, I see that your motivation and your drive is you. You're a built-in, you have those built-in mechanisms. But what if, what else can you look to? What have you looked to for your own motivation and drive, other than just, those built-in mechanisms that you have?
I was blessed. I was blessed to have grown up with great parents, great family, great teachers, people that I listened to, and I've learned a lot. But aside from just the things that happened to me, again, we are living in a beautiful time to be alive. We are living in a time where information is so easily and readily available. Look at yourself. You're providing information to your viewers, to your audience. And 20 years ago, you would never have been able to do that. You never would have had that opportunity to do it. But people can now watch your show and tune into your show, and they can learn from you. So this is such a beautiful time because the information is there, the knowledge is there. Anything that I want to find out, there's a forum for it, there's a group for it, there's a website for it, and I can get that information. So scripture tells us, my people suffer from lack of knowledge. And so the people that suffer from lack of knowledge 200 and 400 and 800 years ago, okay, we understand. But what is your excuse right now for not knowing anything? Especially during COVID, there are so many universities at higher levels of learning that simply said, you know what, we're not going to charge anything. We're going to make it absolutely free for you to take this course. Okay, so write that book, write that script. Start your YouTube channel, start your podcast, whatever you want to do. Learn that fifth language, the second language, but the information is there, and knowledge is power. So yes, I've had a lot of education as far as learning from people, but it's just the simply knowing that if that knowledge is power, and having the knowledge will change my life and therefore the lives of people around me.
I believe and I hope district, the families and individuals living in District 33 will recognize the reservoir of knowledge that you possess, and the leader that and the leadership qualities and skills, and just, overall this, just this foundation that you have, that they could benefit from, because you just said a whole lot about how an individual can uplift themselves and the abundance of resources that are available to them if only they, pay attention to how our society is evolving and go with some of the changes. So finally, in reflection, with all the things that we've discussed, um, you know, um, the fact of your political aspirations, and I hope you become very successful at this because you do deserve it. You've touched on so many areas, and I find inspiration from all the things that you just said. And is there anything that what is your takeaway, or what should people take away from, what is the theme here that you want to suggest to others to, from your message?
I would say that you are God's, that we are all made in the likeness and the image of God. And it's then that we have abilities that we have never even tapped into. So if there's something that an individual wants, if they feel that they want to start a career, start a new entrepreneurial spirit that is in you, you are a creator. Again, you are made in the likeness and the image of the creator. So I always tell people, go out and create. But where so many people go wrong is they don't know what they want. They've never had anyone ask them what they want. They don't even believe that they can have what they want. So they don't see it in their mind's eye. And I always say, first of all, figure out what you want. We sit back and we let life happen to us. Life is a choice, and no choice is a choice. When you don't do anything, then you're just riding this wave of come what may. Be deliberate about your choices. Figure out what you want, where you want to go, where you want to be. I mean, that's what I do. I made the decision that I wanted to run for Senate, found out what that process is, and I went out and set out to do that. So that's what I think more people should do is just be clear on who they are and what they want.
Excellent way to end. Thank you so much. No choice is a choice. That's the thing. That's the theme here, and just a very good point to reflect on. As you said, the opportunities are there, and we should take advantage of those opportunities. No choice is a choice. Sharifa Hardie, thank you so much. This has been very inspirational, and I wish you nothing but all the success, towards your political aspirations. And I hope to keep in touch. Thank you so again.
You are so welcome. Thank you for the opportunity.
Take care.